Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome again to another mini session in this YouTube channel. Um, and again, ideas come when we discuss with colleagues about how can we better support our students in classrooms. And looking at the profile of our teenagers nowadays, sometimes one of the aspects that needs more development to support their learning process is how to become resilient and how to be able to learn from failure and how to be able to face struggle. So I think it's important that we can come up with some strategies and some ideas that we could share in order to support our students to develop those virtues, those habits, to become resilient learners. So this session is going to be based on, as always, a source. The source that I'm going to use is this book written by Andy Griffin and Matt Burns, an extraordinary book with lots of ideas. It is called Teaching Backwards. Um, Not really related with the idea of planning backwards that we had a presentation about in this channel, but more about the idea of outstanding teaching and what kind of strategies can we share to have our teaching strategies develop even further. So if we start talking about resilience and teaching resilience, I think it's important for us to have an idea of what outstanding work means. And I'm sorry for that spelling mistake that I just saw up there. But many aspects and strategies that we need to put in place, or all of them basically, have as a goal to support, to help our students to become successful in their learning journey. So we need to look at the idea of the quality of the feedback that we provide, the expectations set by the school, and how these will put pressure on the students and on the teachers, and how can we help them by teaching resilience. I'm sure you're all aware of the principles of growth mindset from Carol Dweck, but she does make reference to the importance of resilience as an habit of mind that helps students to achieve outstanding work. And I make reference again to habits of mind because this is a clear reference to the book that I've mentioned in other presentations from Menon Kalik, book about the 16 different habits of mind that are also seen as character traits, character virtues, and resilience is one of them. So it's extremely important that resilience is part of our teaching habits and our teaching strategies. So first of all, I would like to share with you what do we understand by learning? What does it mean, learning? And we tend to forget as teachers that learners need to give sense to what they're learning. And basically, one of the best ways of doing that is to make links between real life context and what is being taught. And that just came today in a visit that I did to one of my colleagues in school. And I was visiting a maths lesson and just thinking, how can we improve students' engagement in a maths lesson? And I think that one of the strategies could be have this real life context added into it. So we can give sense to what we're teaching and students then feel engaged because they see the meaning of what they're learning. So do students know what learning means? And what are the complexities behind the learning process? And what problems will they face during the learning process? So Dick Laxton has a very interesting definition of the brain as a muscle that grows, which means the intelligence, with exercise. So the exercise will be the practice, and the growth of that muscle will be the increase of intelligence, if we can say it like that. And James Nottingham has a very interesting idea, which is called the learning pit. And the learning pit affects all the learning processes, not only teenagers, not only our students, but us adults as well when we try to learn something. Because, as you know, when we stop learning, then we die, isn't it? And this lifelong learning process is something that needs to be clear. So this is the idea of the learning pit, something that I share very often with my students every time they feel stuck, every time they feel there's a struggle or they face a problem. For them, it's very important to understand that in the learning process, there is a pit. And then you fall into the pit when you realize that what you need to learn is harder than you thought. And then you're at the bottom of the pit when you feel that you don't get it, that you don't understand, that you will hardly overcome this problem. Then all of a sudden, you try, you give it a go, and you start to get out of the pit by effort, and in particular by using resilience. And then resilience helps you to get out of the pit and have this aha moment, which can be related or can be linked to the feeling of success. And I really invite you to use this idea of the learning pit every time you see one of your students struggling, because it will help them to understand that in the process of learning, we do have this moment of frustration. In addition to that, the book that we're looking at talks about the elephant, but I prefer to talk about the ghost, isn't it? So the ghost is that hidden monster that we all have in our learning process, that we face sometimes or many times. And this monster presents a fear. At some point, fear comes. Fear to being mistaken, fear to not being able, fear to looking stupid. We all had this feeling at some point. Remember when you try to learn a language and then you realize that you will never get it, pronunciation will never be correct, you will forget some words. So this is something that we face on a daily basis. So it's important that our learners understand that the learning process is a journey, and that during the journey, they will face frustration, discomfort, and fear. So they need to get friendly, if I can say that, with the ghost. They need to get used to it and live with it and face it every time they appear. The best way to face this learning ghost will be through resilience. So, can we teach resilience? And if we do, how can this be done? If you consider learning as a changing process that will lead, as we say, to certain discomfort at some time, and then that will lead to lack of motivation, lack of engagement, what can we do? What strategies can we put in place in class to have our students developing those resilient aspects? The first one is maybe to tell our students about our own struggle. Share personal experiences with them, being open. Tell them that we also struggle when we learn. And even us, adults, teachers, we systematically learn on a daily basis. And then we also learn from them, from the students. And then we face this frustration as well. So let's be open, tell them, share with them this experience. That might work. Maybe we want to put in place some stuckness routines, as the book says about teaching backwards. Stuckness routines. And teach our learners to do something where they feel stuck. So tell them, okay, every time you feel stuck, what about pause, go back, think differently, think outside of the box, see what can we do differently. Give a sense of normality to the idea of being stuck. Giving a sense of routine, because that happens, and this is it. Yeah. Maybe we want to teach them how to fail well, how to stand up after being hit. Yeah. Showing them that this is something that happens systematically. We can create routines, habits when they're stuck, and tell them, okay, once we get stuck, let's review, let's look at the resources, let's experiment new things, let's, for example, buddy up, let's ask, how can we ask for help? And ask for help doesn't have to be go to the teacher and ask. It can be look at your resources. It can be ask some classmates. We can even have in the classroom classmates who can be the help desk for certain things, an IT help desk, a maths help desk, a literacy help desk. So we can go to those students who are specialists on something, and we can get from them something. We can give them the chance to create as many drafts as needed. The work does not have to be perfect at the first time. And then in every draft, give them feedback. Give them the chance to improve, to do it again, to do it better. Maybe you want to sign or create a teacher-student agreement where students need to sign up their work when they give it to you. And the sign up is a physical exercise that tells them, I'm signing up an exercise that leads to commitment to excellence. And that's what I do every time I hand in a piece of work. We can, of course, and this is an example that I always give in everything I talk about, lead by example. Whatever we demand, we need to deliver the same thing. Don't ask students something that we're not able to do. So modeling standards. Tell them what do you expect from them. Give clear structures, clear ideas, clear expectations. And probably the best one from my perspective is celebrating mistakes and developing an attitude of being positive, an attitude towards mistakes, thinking that mistakes are okay, they're welcome in the class, because mistakes lead to discoveries, because mistakes lead to improvement. But in order to celebrate mistakes, we need to be perseverant. We need to make sure that every time a mistake happens, we need to get out of the pit and face that mistake and learn from it. As Edison said, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. What about having that in our classroom and repeating that sentence regularly to our students? So what are you going to do? And again, another spelling mistake, and an R in there. What are you going to do? What are you going to do next to teach resilience in your class? I'll be very happy to have your comments, your feedback on the chat of this video, so we can all share experiences as always, and we can all learn from each other on strategies to teach resilience in classroom. Thank you very much, everyone. See you in the next mini session.